let me start by saying congratulations. You did not crash the Ferrari.
Right on.
Good to hear.
You know what I mean? So we're here to talk about Across the Spider-Verse, but I know you guys are knee-deep in Beyond the Spider-Verse. So I just have to ask you, for fans who are going to see this and be like, oh my God, there's another one, where are you in the production process of that?
We are in the process of being so thankful that we survived making this one. That's where we're at. No, I mean...
Good answer.
Yeah, that's really the best answer, I think, for that. I mean, obviously, when we conceptualized it, we broke the story for both of these films, but obviously this came down to the wire, and I think the immediate priority is to get a little bit of a break for folks, but know that very much this is part 2 of a 3-part series that was decided before this was even made, and there will be a third part. That's pretty much all we can really say.
Totally cool.
Yeah.
So this movie's about 2 hours, 20 minutes, and I'm just curious, did at any point the studio say, we would rather have it closer to 2 hours? Like, how did you guys decide on, being able to tell a story in a longer format?
Well, I mean, it's obviously you're always going to get, encouraged to trim and tighten and make it as tight as humanly possible, which no one wants to do that more than us. But at the end of the day, it's is the audience engaged? And I think what really settled us on we don't think that there's any fat in this film, to be honest. And when you start screening it for a test audience, and we started screening it for test audiences, and we figured out the final things that we cut, and we finally screened a version that audience not only enjoyed, but they didn't feel like it was running too long. So, I mean, we remind people that this is meant to be a film. It's animation is a medium that we work in, but we treat it like any other film that any of us would be making. And again, there's a story we're trying to tell, and we need to make sure we give ourselves enough time to tell it. Hopefully, people will be engaged enough that time is not an issue that they think about during it.
First of all, this movie could have been 3 hours, and I would have been sitting there and taking it all in. But there's that element of I think a lot of audiences don't associate animation with...
The first Into the Spider-Verse was almost 2 hours long.
Yeah.
Oh. Which at a time when people were like, animated films are supposed to be 80, 85, 88 minutes. And they came out with the first one and it was almost 2 hours and no one really noticed. So I think that kind of established the template, and that you take the time you need to take to tell the story that you need to tell.
I think that... Go ahead.
And let me just say, the first movie was... so groundbreaking storytelling wise and visually, and it took you on this journey with this kid, Miles Morales, who we fell in love with, and he was at an early part of his development as a spider person, as a hero, but he was a kid and he was 13. We're meeting him in this film a year and a half later, and he's 15 years old. He's dealing with much more complex problems. And the complexity to do that justice, we needed time to tell that story. And we wanted to set up the right pacing for that, so we could have enough time for our lows and our highs in this film. And without those lows, without those really strong emotional beats, none of the crashing and bashing, none of the spectacular visuals and stuff that we set out to make in this movie would really matter. So for us, I don't think length was really much of our primary concern at all. What was our primary concern is, did we care about what was going on? Did we actually want Miles to succeed?
Yeah.
Did we actually feel that tug of Rio and Miles, like Rio's heartbreaking as she says goodbye to Miles and gives him permission to leave the nest, essentially. As parents, we're all parents. And I think the heart of this emotional story, as parents, we've all been in those places with our own children where you're trying to hold on to them and you have to let them grow up. And it's the most painful thing that I've ever been through. It's trying to capture
letting
that.
Those moments play themselves out naturally versus fit into whatever our running time is. I think that's what you want. You want the naturalism to really shine through in those.
Listen, we're on the same page. The character moments are what everyone loves about these movies. It's not the way Spider-Man fights in a scene. It's the characters. So it's very unusual to have 3 directors on a project. And I'm just curious, did you guys sort of have your own speciality in the directing to make sure this project, you know what I mean? Like, could you sort of take me through like how there's 3 directors on this?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think the first one set the pace. There was 3 directors on the first one. It's a big film. This is a bigger film. We all do have our specialties. So, I started in the industry as a story artist. So a lot of my storytelling skill is through visuals, is through camera work, is through compositions, and taking what's written and translating that and disseminating that to a crew that's gonna get and add to what the script is already doing so well.
Oh, I mean, if we're taking turns, I mean, I'll just say, like, I was a production designer on the first film. I've been, obviously that's my background, but ultimately, I think the 3 of us, we all bring our unique experiences. This movie is too big, honestly. It is like making 5 movies at once.
Right.
There's no way we could possibly be in every place we need to be, logistically speaking, and make this movie as if there was just one director. And then I think also the level of expectation, not just based on the first film, but the fans themselves, the fans of Spider-Man own that character. That character is so beloved and needs so much brought to the screen to bring it to life in the right way that it does take 3 brilliant minds like ours to actually make it all come together in the way that it needed to. So, I mean, obviously my background as a visual designer and a production designer, obviously it's going to have a direct influence on our ability to take story and translate those internal ideas into something external.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with my background, it's been a combination of things. I love working with the actors, so actually directing the vocal performances was something that I really took a lot of joy in, spending a lot of time in edit and cutting it all together. I mean, the way it worked functionally was in the beginning, it was all of us doing everything. So every single meeting, we were all 3 of us kind of coming to a quorum in the meeting. Then you get to a certain point in the production, and we kind of split up into 3 silos, following each of those.
That first part allowed us to it was sort of boot camp.
Yes, for us to all kind of get on the same page.
And we came up with all the ideas together.
Yes, together.
And it was like I think we all wanted to make the same movie from the beginning.
Exactly. And then we kind of split up into our specialty silos to execute those ideas. So that's me going off and doing recording sessions with the cast and then sitting in edit with Mike Andrews and Phil and kind of cutting it together, Justin going more into the visual, Joaquim, it just, we conceptualized, worked on it together, and then kind of split up in order to actually execute it. And then make sure we checked in. So every week, it's like you get to see what the other person's doing and give your notes and give your input on that. And that's really, I mean, it's kind of a miracle that we got the movie done, considering how much we had to tackle in such a short period of time.
So my question is, because you knew that this was a 2-part movie, when you were doing vocal recording with the actors or you're working on this whole thing, were you working on both parts at the same time? Or is it one of these things where, so like all the vocal stuff's done for both movies?
No, some of it is. Yeah. We have some vocal stuff done for the second film. But no, not all of it's done for both movies. They're all going to be coming back.
And look, these things, they evolve over time. It's not exactly to the letter of the law with what's on the script, with what ends up on screen. It evolves. Mm-hmm. So that'll continue to happen through the next film as well. Changes will come at the last minute. You'll screen it and you'll get reactions. Right. That'll cause you to pivot.
And honestly, people's reactions to this film is going to influence and impact what happens with that next film.
So behind you, we can see some of the spider characters. There is a few scenes in this movie where there are an ungodly amount of spider characters. Do you actually know how many spider people, if you will, are in the movie, like the final number?
Did you get that number?
The exact number? Boy, because we kept adding like all the way up until the very end. And I don't think I'm going to be a level with you. we just finished the film like in the last like 2 weeks, and I don't think I've had time to pause and actually take a final count. But I think I was about 280 the last time I looked in. But that doesn't necessarily mean, just to be clear, that doesn't mean like specific unique characters that you might recognize. It might mean variations as well. But if you're just talking about named characters, then I think there's probably about 95.
The animators, like when I was watching this movie, I wanted to push pause about 1,000 times, and I will do that when it's eventually on home video. Yeah. But one of the things is, have any of you actually pushed pause on every frame? Because I would imagine some of the animators are going to sneak through some things, maybe, that, you know.
I'm sure it's happened on some, yeah, but I will say this: we had a different experience, and we've talked about this a little earlier. Yeah. We came into screening rooms assuming that we were looking at like key art or paintings, and we sat down. And we're like, "Viz Dev looks great," and then they hit play, and it started moving. And we were like, "What is happening right now?" Mm-hmm. You know, it sort of shifted our entire sort of paradigm. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be one of the treats of this film is that you'll want to go back and watch it again and again because there is so much to discover.
Yeah, no matter how many times we pause, you can't catch it all. I think we actually have been in the past week just now taking stock of the Easter eggs.
That's right.
I think so.
Yeah, this week has like been the first time people are actually in a room going through every single Easter egg. So to figure out everything that's actually
your final tally
in the film. Yeah, that's when you.
And it's funny.
I think part of
yeah.
And
My next question.
And I think part of the reason why is because all these different departments are working at the same time, and each department is getting their own Easter eggs in.
Yes.
And so a lot of it is for example, one of my favorite Easter eggs to track is how many times our head of character animation, Alan Hawkins, makes an appearance in the film.
Isn't he on money?
He's on money. He's on money. His animation crew love for him and just using him as a gag in the background. And there's actually a little story journey that they created for Alan Hawkins.
He became everybody's icon. At some point, everybody logged on to one of the sessions, and their icon was just different faces that Alan makes.
And so there's actually this whole journey that I expect to see fully developed on the internet at some point, just tracking Alan through the movie.
This is something I'm already looking forward to. What day of the production did someone want to rage quit when you said, we're going to animate this and now we're going to add water and rain?
Wow. Oh, not at all.
I'm joking. I'm joking around.
Actually, I think you couldn't get me to rage quit this movie if you tried. And in fact, many people might have expected me to many times. But I think that the idea of being given an opportunity to work on the world's most expensive independent art house film is probably a dream come true as an artist, and being able to express ourselves as fully with a crew of almost 1,000 people working for 735 years of work, quite literally, and how dedicated and committed they were to that, this just experimenting and doing something new at all times. You couldn't pull me away from that, while also sorry for the sound, guys. But while also all of that being supported by the gravitas and the weight of this incredible emotional journey, you couldn't pull me away from that.
Yeah, it was more like an animator who's because you're pushing the technology, you know what I mean, hard to deliver this film.
We were joking, one of there's small things that you don't take into account. That maybe didn't happen on the first film that happened on this one. Gwen putting her hair up in a bun. That's an expensive decision. You gotta lean in and go it's what's right for the character. It's what's right for the moment. It'll add naturalism, and then you got people that are literally going that's going to cost us this amount of money.
Removing a mask. Pulling off a mask is one of the big things.
Slowly, so that you see it tugging on the skin.
That's a big gesture. Yeah. And on animation is the spider people pulling their masks off.
Well, to your specific point, though, I see what you're asking. Actually, no, our crew didn't want to leave the movie. Actually, I mean, I literally got a letter from them a couple days ago, how much they wish they could keep working on this because it was so inspiring to them. That almost moved me to tears to read, because we did ask so much of them, but they were so committed the whole time. These movies, having worked on the first movie as a production designer and now as a director on this with these guys, like, these movies like are an opportunity you rarely get anywhere in your career. Like, to do something where we give people permission, we're giving permission to ourselves, and the support of the studio behind that to experiment and to do things nobody's tried before. You don't realize, like, the crew like made this movie. Like, they own this movie as much as any of us.
Yeah, we're lucky. We get to be up here and do the thing.
Yeah.
But it's their passion.
And also, just from the first few frames, when you see logos and it's already doing cool stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I was so happy. Just because it pulls you right in.
You can't even get through the Sony logo without going like, oh wow, look at it.
Right.
I definitely have to ask you, because I'm running out of time, about music, because the first film soundtrack people love it. And I'm just curious what it was like with the sequels, figuring out what songs you want to put in, because I would imagine there's a lot of artists who are like, I want to be in this movie.
Yeah, it was a two-part. Well, the bigger challenge is what we're going to use, music versus score, because we're just a wealth, so many riches, in that we have Daniel Pemberton, who came back for the score, as well as Metro Boomin, who was executive producing the soundtrack, and then a few needle drop songs of our own choices to throw in there. So, for a lot of the production of the film, we're using temp music, and we're deciding throughout the process what works better in this moment, temp or score. And, Metro, being probably one of the most amazing producers in the world today, he's the one who went out and found the artists that he wanted to bring onto a lot of these tracks. And what I love about what Metro does is that, he speaks to like the past, the present, and like what's coming in the future. And I think that's reflected. James Blake is one of my favorite artists, and to hear a James Blake song, Metro song, is like amazing to me. But it's like we also get Rakim in there, and then Daniel Pemberton does some things with the score. He had already done such an amazing score with the first film, but he did such an amazing evolution, I think, of the score, that from those opening credits you talk about, where like the logos are coming up and the score just says to you like, okay, this is something different, and it's a lot of it was trial and error, to be honest. That's the wonderful thing about animation. It's an iterative process. So we got to drop in different kinds of music in different moments of the film and see what was the most effective, what had the most impact emotionally on the audience. And it's an equalizing thing you do until the very end.